I will always be giving, but there are times where I'm not giving. I think we say what we want to be, we do what we truly are.
Hello everyone, my name is Sarah and I am a co-active life coach as well as the host for MindPod. This is a place where I will be inviting interesting human beings to explore an idea. There's no right, no wrong, just browsing. So let's see what we can stir up. Our guest today is Amy Fisher, who is a working mom of 2 children. She's been married for 8 years and currently lives in the UAE. So let's invite her in. Hi Amy.
Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. Some peace and quiet at last. So happy to have some adult conversation.
Yeah. And thank you for joining today. I'm really excited to talk about this topic with you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. I think it's something that we probably don't spend enough time really considering, who we are in our family, in our community, in our world. So I think it's going to be an interesting topic.
Awesome. Let's get started then. Okay, so let's start with what is the role of a wife in 2020? So, Amy, in your opinion, what are the differences between being a wife versus being a girlfriend?
I think that being a girlfriend gives you the chance to explore who you are and who you are with other people. I think once you make the commitment of marriage, you are making a commitment, and I think that you're binding yourself into the promise to yourself and to the other people involved, the families, the man that you're marrying, more importantly, that you will work together to achieve the best possible life together. And obviously, once you have a family, that commitment becomes even more important because it's not just the two of you that affects then, it's your children. And like I said, the families around you as well. I think it's important to see it as a combination of families rather than as just the joining of two people.
So your relationship is not only you and your husband, but it's the entire family.
Yeah, I think that you need to respect people's wider family. When you marry an individual, you're marrying them for reasons that you've decided, but you are also taking on the commitment to respect and to care for their wider family, their mother and their father, to be sister-in-law to their brothers and their sisters, and to be auntie to their nephews and nieces. And I think that, you do make promises to that person that you will continue to respect and to be part of that wider family as well.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like it's a lot of work meeting all the family members, especially if your partner has a huge family. So how do you cope with that?
Yeah, absolutely. It could be seen that way. I'm a people person. To me, family is everything. The bigger the family, the better. I'm not for 1 second saying that everybody gets on all of the time. That's not possible, not even within your own bloodline. But I think that families bring something to our lives that, other relationships can't. Working together to make the most of what you have is what will keep you together ultimately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like once you're committed to a person and when you have a family with them, you're sharing the same view or same vision of how you want to live together.
I think it would be ideal to always share the same view, but I think a healthy relationship is being able to express your view and understand and respect that maybe your partner's isn't the same. I think marriage is a lot about compromise. Compromise and finding that equilibrium, the things that you can compromise on, the things that you're not willing to compromise on, and doing the same for your husband or for your wife. I think that it's a continuous discussion. It's a continuous path of communication. And ultimately, marriages hit rocky patches, and all marriages hit rocky patches when that communication breaks down. So yeah, I don't think that necessarily having the same views is important. I think being able to find views that suit both of you, and sometimes just holding your hands up and say, look, we're not going to see eye to eye on this. Let's agree to disagree. I respect your opinion. I need you to respect my opinion. And, you know, we can be happy with that conclusion.
And how have you changed since the time you were single to becoming a wife?
Oh, gosh, a lot. I mean, I've gone through a huge change anyway. I converted to Islam not long before I got married. I was born Catholic. I was raised in the UK. I now live in the UAE, and I'm married into a different culture. So, you know, with all of those things come massive changes in your life. I think that as a person, though, I would like to think that I haven't changed massively. If anything, what has changed are my priorities. I think as a single girl, certainly a single career-driven woman, I very much put myself first. And that's probably how I got to where I am now. Everything was very much about me. I had my own goals. Since being married, that can't be the case. Yes, you know, I'm going to hold my hands up, and I absolutely put myself first sometimes, because everybody needs to do that. I think it's really important that you find time for you, in no matter what your role is in any kind of relationship. But I do find that I will put the happiness of those people around me sometimes before myself. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think one of the best things about marriage and about growing up, I guess, and that, you know, even now in my mid-30s, I still feel like I'm not an adult. You know, I'm still growing, I'm still learning every single day, and I'm learning about myself. And there are times where I look at myself and I don't like what I see, and there are times where I look at myself and I'm really proud of what I see. But ultimately, as long as I continue to learn, then I feel like I'm heading in the right direction.
What's the advantage of being a wife?
The advantage is that I have somebody to support me. I have somebody to soundboard my ideas off. I have somebody to work through my problems with, to comfort me when I really need it. But also somebody to G me up and to support me in the big choices that I'm making. I made a massive choice as part of my career not long ago. And I didn't know whether I was doing the right thing. And having my husband wholeheartedly support me and give me the pros as to, you know, what I was deciding, but also to explain to me the ways in which he was willing to change to support me in making that decision was massive. And I think that one of the best things about being in a marriage is that you always have that person there. It's not always the prettiest picture, don't get me wrong, like we disagree all of the time, but having that person there when you need it most, and knowing that they will push you to make the decision that's right for you as a wider family, I think is really important to me.
So how has the relationship evolved after marriage?
I think the biggest thing for me is that as I learn about myself, I am constantly learning about my husband too. I think as humans, we change a lot through our 20s, through our 30s, probably into our 40s and our 50s. And, you know, you are constantly learning more about yourself, but you have to be aware that the people that you share your most intimate times with are also changing. And so it's an evolving story. I don't think that there's a defining point where you can say, I have a happy marriage and I will always have a happy marriage, or my marriage is over and it will definitely always be over. I think that certainly in my experience, there are times where I feel close to both. And it's only when you really explore that and learn more about each other that you find pathways through it. I think one of the biggest changes, though, is that we've both learnt our levels. I don't know how to phrase it, but our top levels. We know at what point that we need to leave something. We know at what point we need to walk away. And we know at what point that there's just no need to continue a conversation.
Yeah, and how do you know?
I think through trial and error. It's there's no other way to learn that. I mean, you can talk about it all you want. I can tell him until I'm blue in the face that, you know, I will always be giving, but there are times where I'm not giving. I think we say what we want to be. We do what we truly are. And I think even that changes with time and with situations. There are certain situations, certain topics that are a lot more emotive for one of us than the other. And just learning to read that other person. You know, when you live with somebody 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you learn their triggers, you learn their behaviors, you learn the look in their eye when they wake up in the morning that tells you today is not the day to ask that big question. Or, you know, the sigh as they step out of bed that makes you realize that today is the day that they're open. So, yeah, I think you become almost one in a way. You learn to read each other incredibly well.
So, in your opinion, when two people are not being able to understand each other and they keep clashing, what's missing?
Probably communication. I would say that has been the area in all of the marriages that I know best that falls down the most often. And even, I believe that even marriages that seem really strong on the outside sometimes have communication gaps. I'm somebody who's really open to external help. Like sometimes you just need that mediator. Sometimes you just need somebody to help you to listen to the person that you really need to listen to. And not tell you what's right or what's wrong or who's right or who's wrong, but like I said, just open up your ears and allow you to listen, help you to listen. And sometimes you do need, you know, those extra people outside of your marriage to say, look, what you're doing is right. Like, keep pushing for it. You're on the right path. So, like I said right at the very beginning, I don't think marriage is just between two people. I think that there are always avenues and pathways outside of the marriage that can help you. It might be your mother-in-law, it might be somebody that neither of you know, that's a total mutual sounding board. But communication is so key, and being aware of how good your communication is at any one point, I think is ultimately the answer to everybody's surviving marriage.
Right.
I mean, I'm very aware that there are marriages out there that can't survive, that, you know, that one or the other is not open to continuing the marriage for whatever reason. But outside of those situations, I think that there are pathways through every trial and tribulation for every two people.
Yeah. I really liked what you said, that, you know, people around become an importance as well when there are things that you want to share. Maybe your mother-in-law would understand you better because he is her son, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it just takes, you know, me hearing what my husband's been trying to tell me from somebody else for me to hear it properly. And, you know, you don't want your partner running to somebody else every time they want to speak to you. But I think that I have learned that there are times where saying what we truly feel is just too difficult for us. And in those circumstances, knowing that you have that support network around you to help you build that communication again and that honesty is the sort of net that you need to catch.
Right. Yeah. And, Amy, we all grew up watching our parents' relationship. That was pretty much the first exposure we've had in how two people work things out. So, how is yours different from your parents?
It's funny. I look back on what I saw or perceived my parents' marriage to be when I was younger, and I think I had really rose-tinted glasses. I was under the impression that, my parents were really happily married. They never had any arguments. They got up with smiles on their faces every day. They went to bed with smiles on their faces, and our lives were, pretty grand. And it's only really since being married and probably leaning a little bit on my mother and my father to understand the roles of husband and wife, um, that I've seen that there were flaws in their relationship too, and there still are. I think that they have taught me that it isn't something that you just perfect on day two and you're happy ever after. That even they're 38 years into 37 years into their marriage, even after 37 years, they're still working through things. They're still finding communication gaps at times. And, the outside world would deem them a happily married, long-term married couple. But I think that I have grown to see that it's okay not to be perfect. It can still work, and it can still produce a really loving family. And ultimately, that's the goal, isn't it? I go and stay with my parents for a month every year, without failure, barring COVID. And yeah, I think it's really opened my eyes to their relationship, the really lovely parts of it, but the also not so pretty parts of it. And it's given me confidence that I don't need a perfect relationship all the time for it to be a good relationship.
Yeah. I mean, we all kind of assume that, after marriage, like, how Disney has painted this picture of, oh, you're married, you're good. And we kind of perceive that, okay, from now on, we're always going to feel on top of the world. This person is always going to make me feel special. But that's not the case. Marriage is the beginning.
Absolutely. And I think we're almost tricked into believing that marriage is our happily ever after, that from that day, you will constantly feel in love. You will constantly, be laughing and rolling around with joy with, your new partner, and that there will never be any rocky roads. And it's such a misinterpretation of life.
Yeah,
But then I also look back on that, and I'm sure you'll agree with me that if that was my life, it would be pretty boring. You know,
absolutely.
I learn all the time from the rocky pathways. I don't learn from the good moments. And I probably wouldn't appreciate them when they happened if they were constant.
Yeah, human beings are very interesting because when we have something for a long time, we get bored. You know, we need a challenge.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And I think that we're also naturally very ambitious. We always want the next thing, the next thing, the next best thing.
Hmm.
And marriage is one of those things where it's not going to continue to constantly get better. It will do eventually be better than it started, of course, but it will probably look very different from when it first started.
Yeah.
And the dynamic will probably be very different. And I don't know, I'm less than 10 years into my marriage, so
Mm,
I don't know what the end story is.
mm.
But I hope that it will be very different from now, not because now isn't good enough, but because I want to continually evolve, and I will want different things when I'm 50 than I do when I'm 30, and when I'm 70 than when I'm 50. So if it's not changing, I think I've probably got a really big problem.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That means, I mean, personally, I feel like if the relationship is stagnant, someone is not being honest, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, I think that comes down to the joining of two individuals. You
Mm,
are both going to change massively from the day that you get married. Um, my my nan actually got married for a second time in her 50s, and even between her 50s and her 80s, her life, her, her ideals in life have changed so much between then and now. And I think has shown me that there's never a point in your life where what you had yesterday will be enough for today, or the right thing for today, because today's challenges are always different from yesterday's. So what you need is somebody who can float those waves with you, and can bear the downs as much as they can celebrate the highest points.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, so let's move on to what is a role of a daughter in 2020? So, what is the expectations your parents have from you as a daughter today?
I've been thinking quite a lot about this actually over the last week or so, because I think that this is a question that could be answered so many different ways by every single woman in the world. I don't know whether I'm lucky or whether I'm not lucky that my parents' expectations of me as a daughter have just been to find happiness. They've been incredibly supportive of all of my life choices. I left the country that they brought me up in for 2 years, 15 years ago. And I think there must have been a point where they were like, oh, gosh, she's not coming back. But they've never let me feel that. They've always supported my decisions and emphasized that as long as I'm happy, they will be supportive. And I'm sure there are times where I've made choices where they think, oh gosh, what is she doing now? But they've been very careful to question considerately, and respect my choices. And I feel very fortunate to have parents that are like that don't allow their own ideals or prejudices influence what I want to do. That said, the pressures I put on myself, or the expectations I put on myself as a daughter, especially as they get older, I think are changing. I always said that, I would never be somebody who went back home. I'm very independent. I've always been very independent. Now, as I watch my grandparents get older and need more support, and my parents be there for them, I'm starting to think about what happens when it's their turn, when they need their daughter. They have 4 daughters, so I'm not the only one. It wouldn't be a full-time commitment from any one of us, I don't think. But I do want to be there for them, because I now see that they have been there so wholeheartedly for me.
Yeah, and from what I've seen, daughters are usually good at keeping in touch with their parents.
Yeah, I think I'm actually better at keeping in touch with my parents than my parents are with me a lot of the time. They're parents who constantly worry that they're interfering with my life, and they don't want to bother me. But I am incredibly close to both of my parents. The idea of having a year without seeing them fills me with absolute dread. COVID literally couldn't be worse for a daughter who lives 4,000 miles from her parents. That said, I keep in contact with them all of the time, and I would never, ever want that relationship to change. However, having 2 boys, I'm hoping that that's not just daughters. I'm hoping that close relationship is just children in general, from happy families. But we'll see. I'll come back to you in 20 years and tell you whether that's the truth.
Yeah, let me know. And what are the ways you can or you want to give back to your parents as a daughter?
I want them to never worry. And I'm in a really fortunate situation where I can allow that to happen. So I make sure I don't give them money. They would never take it from me. I know that that's who they are, and that's my father's, certainly my father's pride level. He would never take money from his daughter. That said, I do have a bank account set up in my home country that my dad has the card to. And the understanding is that at any point, without asking, if he needs money for anything at all, he can take it. I know and I trust, and I don't need it, but I know that he will always pay me back, probably in more than he ever needed to. But I like to know that there's that safety net from them, and that they know that they'll never be stuck. because I think I owe them that. That's certainly what they've provided for me. And I want them to have the same back. And likewise, I would hope that from an emotional and support point of view, that they know that they can always call on me. I'm a long way away. I've got sisters who are much, much closer, and I'm aware that they probably wouldn't put on me in the same way that they would my sisters. I think there's a really good example. Actually, my father was diagnosed with bowel cancer 4 years ago. He told my sisters together and left telling me until he had his surgery date, because he knew that I was so far away that I would feel totally helpless. And he told me at a point where he knew I was coming back that it wasn't long until I had to wait to come back, and that he had a resolution to the problem. And I think that speaks a lot about him as a father. He doesn't want to put on his children ever. And he doesn't want us to worry about him either.
Yeah, that's so considerate of him. But how did you
He
feel?
was really annoyed at the time.
Yeah, how did you feel when you got the news? When the surgery was done, you said?
Yeah, I was actually back in the UK for the surgery, which was a massive relief to me. My husband, bless him, going back to that talk about being supportive, was with me or my dad made sure he was with me when he told me over the phone. And the first thing that my husband said is, do you want to go? If you need to go and leave the children here, go. Please go. Don't feel like you're ever being held back from your family. And yeah, I was angry with him at the time. I was angry that he'd left it so long, and that him and my mum had suffered together without sharing that burden with us. But now looking back and knowing that he's well and not having the worry of that diagnosis, I can see why they would do it. And I don't blame them one bit for making those choices. I think that shows their respect levels as a parent. And it also has shown me, how they value me as a daughter. They know that I would want to be there, and they understand me well enough to know how I'm going to react. And I think, as a parent, as a daughter, I think that's the kind of relationship that you want with your parents, that you understand each other to the point of knowing exactly what's best for somebody.
Do you discuss about your parents' future with your siblings?
Not yet, no. I feel like my parents are still in their late 50s, early 60s. And I feel like, well, they're still working and they're both still very active. Dad's diagnosis was a massive shock to all of us, I think. But they're incredibly healthy, very active, young parents, really.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I don't think that conversation has come up yet. We kind of joke a little bit. My sister lives with them at the moment, that she will never leave, and that, one day the tables are going to turn and she's going to be looking after them. But ultimately, I would never expect any one of my sisters to take that on full time. I think that would be really unfair. Family expectation on a single person.
Yeah. So you would want to be there in any support that you can give.
Absolutely. And I think, going back to my first point, one of the things that has really sort of changed in thinking from the young girl who moved out here 15 years ago, with kind of a, wave to the UK, knowing that I was probably never going to have a full-time life there again, to now, is that I do want to be back in the UK to support my parents at least part of the year, every year. I don't want to miss out on that time with them. And so now, looking forward to my future, it's very much about how do I establish myself so that I can spend the time I need to with my husband and my children here, but also the time that I owe to my parents in the UK.
And has there been a shift in how you look at your parents since you became a parent?
Oh, massive, especially my mum. I don't think that the bond between a mother and daughter can be any stronger than when the daughter has a baby of their own. And suddenly you realise all of the pain and the suffering that they've been through to raise you. And mothers do it without any gripes, really. Like, as a child, you're never aware of the stresses that they're going through, the sleepless nights, their ultimate tiredness. You have no clue. And so, yeah, And not just that, I've done it twice. I'm a mother to two. My mother's a mother to four. I can't comprehend how she got four of us up, ready, and walked us to school every morning. Like, even the basics. I just have so much respect and admiration for that woman, and for every mother out there. Honestly, it's changed my view massively.
Hmm. I can also see a lot of appreciation in what your mom has done and how much love you've received when you were a child. And we don't remember a lot of things when we were babies, right? But then you learn to live that as you take care of your own babies.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I was really fortunate. I don't have many memories beyond the age of about four. But I was an only child until I was six. My next sister's 6 years younger than me. Um, and my dad at the time was working away, so it was just me and my mum. And I think that's probably been the defining point of our bond.
Mm.
But I also know how hard that must have been for her as a working mother with a young child on her own at home. I can fully appreciate how difficult that was for her. But I certainly don't have any memories of any unhappiness at all, which just shows the power of a woman to be able to protect their child from even the toughest times.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think, like I said, it's a credit. And yeah, I have a lot of admiration for all the mothers out there. I don't think that there's a mother that doesn't do that for their child.
Mm. Yeah. So let's move to that role of a mother. What are the things a woman can experience only when you become a mother?
The biggest thing must be that overwhelming love. I don't think that a human can appreciate the love for something or someone else until you have a child. And don't get me wrong, I was kind of under the impression that love was like immediate and unconditional, and it wasn't for me. And for a couple of weeks after having my first son, I thought that there was something wrong with me, because I didn't look at my baby and feel, fully overwhelmed with love. But it's grown and grown and grown to a point where I can't imagine a single second without them. It's a feeling and an experience that I don't think that is comparable to anything. That raw need to protect and to nurture. I honestly can't think of another example in my life, certainly, where I have that overwhelming responsibility and need to protect.
And when you have more than one child, how do you feel like that overwhelming love? Does it double? And how do you give back to your sons?
Yeah, that's interesting. I remember being pregnant actually with my second child and thinking, looking at my first child and thinking, what if I don't love this one the same? Like, I can't imagine loving anybody like I love my first. It's a feeling that you're not going to be enough, that there isn't enough love to go around. But then the second child comes and I don't know, it's like your heart doubles overnight. And yeah, it's all consuming though. And it can be really exhausting. I once read somewhere actually a phrase that becoming a mother is like wearing your heart outside of your body. So everything you do is like letting the most vulnerable part of you do something that you have no control over. And nothing's ever really expressed what it feels like more than that. It's like giving your heart, like literally, having your heart on a string and letting them walk around separate to your body, knowing that if anything goes wrong with that, that's it, you're over. It's a feeling that I can't describe at all. And it does just seem to keep growing. I don't know where it grows from.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm just having a very random thought. So, we all know this phrase, like women are more emotional, right? Do you think there's a reason why we're biologically more emotional than men? Is it because of the fact that we need to ensure that we pass on our genes and ensure that they're protected so they can continue to do that. Do you think that's tied to how emotions can come and take over us sometimes?
Yeah, possibly. It would certainly, I think that explanation certainly would clear up a lot of my confusion over, how you become that person that worries about everything, from that carefree young single girl to that constant worrier. It's almost beyond belief when I think back to how I was pre-children. But I also think, we talk a lot about men being a sort of more natural gender. So going back to sort of that raw instinct. But actually, I think mothers have a lot of that too. Women have a lot of that too. Like the primal instinct to protect is like nothing else. You have the phrase, don't upset the mama bear. And it's true, like that mama bear can come out of even the softest of women. If you go near her children, upset her children, say something bad about the children, then mama bear is going to come out with her claws raised. So yeah, I think that it's interesting actually to see the sort of differences that a woman goes through when they have that baby to protect. And that baby never goes away either. Like I said, my son's turning 7 tomorrow. He's still my baby. He's still very much my baby. And I can see that extending to when he's like 36. If somebody disses my baby at 36, like mama bear is going to be there with her claws out.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, and what are the things you can or you want to provide as a mother for your children?
Time, I think, is the one thing that I wish I could provide more of. And I think this comes back down to sort of our roles and that very beginning point that we talked about, where the roles of a woman's life, and maybe men too, I'm not sure, but certainly a woman's life is so intermingled. I can't be a wife without being a mother when my family are in the home together. I can't be a daughter without also considering my roles as a wife and as a mother. The boundaries become very blurred. But the one thing that sort of really upsets the balance of those three is the boundaries of being an employee too. And I want to give all of my time and attention to my family, but I know in order to provide for my family, I have to give some time and attention to my career and the things that I've worked hard for, and to me. And it's very difficult, I think, for a mother to take that step back and to say, do you know what, today the time isn't for the children. Today the time's about me or about my work, because I need to be able to give you more than just being your mother. And ultimately I'm a better mum when I have that time for me and when I feel proud of my own achievements. So yeah, the boundaries are really blurred, I think. But I wish I had more time.
What are the challenges and opportunities you can find as our society has become more virtual?
I think in my family, the opportunity to be as connected as possible to all of their extended family is massive. I think one of the big things for me, I've spoken a lot about how my family are really important, my extended family, both my husband's family and my family. And one of the sort of big things for me is that my children feel that too, and feel that know that it's not just about me and their father. It's about their grandmothers and their aunties and their uncles and their cousins. And we are one big extension of a single family. Having some of that family so far from us, that would be impossible if it wasn't for, the virtual world of 2020. And being able to, even little things, we're having a COVID birthday party for my son tomorrow. And my family all sent really moving birthday videos for him that we've put into a compilation that we'll play to him after his cake. And these are things that just couldn't be done 50 years ago. Letters aren't the same as seeing somebody's eyes and hearing their words from their mouth, are they? So I feel like, yeah, we live a long way, but the world has closed up massively. And we are closer now to the rest of the world than we've ever been.
And any challenges in today's world?
Absolutely. The challenge that you can't switch off. The challenge that when you really want to give 100% of your time to one person, there's always a beep in the background or a buzzing of a phone or, TV or internet to distract. I think that we don't have enough time anymore for each other, and that a lot of our communication has become misinterpreted because it's not done face to face and eye to eye. So I think they bring massive challenges into all of the roles that we've spoken about today. I can't convey how hard it is sometimes to get across a really simple meaning in words that are typed over words spoken face to face.
I feel like many mothers and even adults, we now think that when we're watching TV together, that's spending time together. What do you think of that?
Yeah, and I'm guilty of it. I'm so guilty of it. Thursday film night is like our family time. And there are times where I sit watching the film and both of the boys are sort of glued to the screen eating their popcorn. And I think, this is so sad, because actually in our family time, we've probably said 5 words together, and most of those were arguing over which film we were going to watch. But yeah, I think that, I'm raising a generation of children that I don't fully understand yet, because they are so reliant on having answers and things immediately. Everything happens immediately for them. They need the answer to their big history question. They ask Alexa or check on Google and they got it. In my day, yeah, I had to go somewhere and find it. In my parents' day, they probably never know. I don't know. But no, these children are children that expect things now immediately, and they really struggle with that delayed gratification, because they're so used to having everything so instantly.
Yeah. I also feel that we don't have patience anymore.
No, we don't have patience and we don't have time. And yeah, I think that comes from that delayed gratification. We're so used to everything being instant. We have a complaint to make, we email them now. We need a delivery. We don't need to wait until it's cooler so we can walk to the shop. We, call somebody up and they come immediately. And if they're 5 minutes late, we're suddenly really upset about that they're 5 minutes late bringing our groceries to us. And it's being amplified as well. Like, my children are at the point where they can't make that next step at all. If it's not happening right this second, their patience is wearing thin. So yeah, it's I think it's a different world, but it's a world that we have to evolve to accept, and we have to find the benefits of. There are frustrations, I think, because we're 2 generations who are very different, trying to understand each other. But ultimately, it's up to us as the older generation to find the positives in our next generation and use those to our advantage, rather than constantly complaining about the differences in the 2 generations.
Yeah. And what are the things that have become easier in today's world with this current situation?
Certainly spending time together. So if I go back to even January this year, my children were both in school or nursery pretty much full time. They would get on a bus at 6:30 in the morning. My eldest would get back about 5. I would arrive back from work around 6. We'd have dinner together, and then they'd be in bed by 7:30 because they had to be up early in the morning. So I'd have maybe an hour with them every day. And that hour, it's never an easy hour. It's bath time, it's homework time, it's bedtime, it's a rush. Everything's a rush. And by the time they're down, I'm so exhausted, I don't have time for my husband. So it was a manic world. And I look at the world that I'm currently in, and thank God that I still have a job, but I'm working from home. I can take my children to school in the morning. I can pick them up at lunchtime and make sure that my lunchtime is around their finish time so that, I have that time to go and pick them up. And okay, we're not talking all of the time, but I can hear them. They know I'm here. And just having that time together and knowing that if I need to take 2 minutes to just go and give them a hug, I can do it. It's invaluable. I wouldn't change it for the world. And in certain terms, I almost hope this continues forever, because I think that it's brought a happiness to our home that we probably didn't have before. And I didn't really appreciate that we were missing, because I've always been that working mother. And you don't know what you don't have, do you?
No. Yeah. No, that's absolutely great. I also do hope that the world can see how working from home can be effective, and effective people will work no matter where they are.
Interestingly, though, I want to ask you. So, you're at the beginning of some of these journeys. Maybe not being a daughter. I'm sure you've been a daughter for a long time. But how do you see it? Like, what's your opinion on the things that we've discussed today? What's your opinion of being, a wife, and what do you hope as you look into motherhood in the future?
Right. So all these three roles, well, daughter, I'm still a daughter, but being a wife and being a mother is not something that I have experienced yet. I definitely see a lot more responsibilities, a lot more commitment, a lot more seriousness, but a lot more bonding as well. So I feel like I'm gonna have a lot of discovery about myself as I start building a family and as we go through that ups and downs. But I would say I'm lucky to have found someone that I feel comfortable enough to start that journey with, So I feel very secure, looking forward to all the challenges and opportunities that this experience will bring.
Amazing. I've seen you make so many changes in your life on a personal level over the last couple of years. And it's nice to see somebody who's so secure in themselves that you just know that no matter what choices you make in the future, and whether, you become all of those roles, or whether you choose a different pathway at all. And I think, there are a lot of women now who are choosing to, take different roles in the community. I think watching somebody grow like you have over the last couple of years puts you in a really good light. And I wish you the absolute best.
Thank you, Amy. That means a lot. And how do you feel playing all these three roles, being a wife, daughter, and a mother?
I think that these are things that we're kind of made for as a woman. We're living in a woman's world. Those roles are all really well designed to play to the things that women genetically are very good at. I think the challenge comes when we start to take roles in what society has termed men's positions, because that's not what our gender has biologically prepared us for. And so trying to then balance those three really important roles becomes really difficult when you're trying to operate in a man's world. So I think each of them have a real importance, and each of them have a real importance on the success of the others. The stronger bond you feel with your parents, the easier I feel bonding is with your own children. The more support you have within your marriage, the easier being a good daughter or looking after your parents is, and being a stable mother for your children. So they're so complementary. And like I said right at the beginning, that the boundaries are so blurred. I don't know at what point I'm being a wife or being a mother or being a daughter. I feel like I'm doing all three simultaneously all the time.
Yeah. So it's like you're playing a piano, right? You're pressing all the buttons at the same time.
Yeah. No, totally. And yeah, there's no it's even more complex than that in some ways, because it's not your left hand playing one piece and your right hand playing another. Your left hand sometimes has to play one role that should be the role of your right hand. And so, they go well together. They build each other incredibly well. And I feel like, even the downside, the communication loss within your marriage can suddenly have major impacts on your ability to be, a stable mother. Having issues with the relationship with your children can massively impact the relationship you have with your husband or with your parents. So I think that they're so intertwined that you really need to be constantly growing in all of them. Otherwise, one and all of them will eventually slip.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Amy, for joining me today.
No problem at all. It was a lovely time to have a chat.
Yeah, it was fun. Great. I hope to be in touch with you and hope to speak to you soon.
And I can't wait to hear more of your podcasts. I listened to Wayne's last week and it was brilliant. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the series.
Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. What are your thoughts on the topic today? In the next topic, we will discuss about career and society within what it means to be a woman in 2020. Until next time.